2, gotta get that blue. 3, 4, edit on the floor. 5, 6, better say those clips. 7, 8, looking for the crate. 9, 10, going for the win.
So our first issue is audio slider, and this has been around since 2017. You know, people have been asking like, hey, can we get a slider for this? Can we turn down the volume of this vehicle? And they did give us a sound effects slider, but the issue is since the vehicles aren't separated, if you turn down the sound effects, you can't hear bullets anymore. You can't hear footsteps anymore. Those need to be separated. Not all of them should be separate, fine, but vehicles definitely should. And they should only affect the audio I hear, not what everybody else hears. So, you know, if I turn down the audio for the vehicles, maybe I can't hear other people's vehicles. I don't know. But I feel like it should just be what I hear from my own stuff, because I don't want to have to yell over it, and it's just really bad. And then streams are the same way. Like if you get in a vehicle and you're streaming, like RIP your ears, you know. Now with the reticle color, Ninja just had an experience where basically his skin was pure white, couldn't see it, and you know, he ended up dying from it. Now this theoretically could be avoided if you could change your reticle color. If you had a blue or a green, it would stick out so much more right through here. It's harder to track opponents, especially when it's white. If you're looking up at the sky or anything, or in the storm, it's really hard. Now I know, you know, basically you kind of get used to where your reticle is, your aim, but even that right there, you could see the outlines, but you couldn't see all of it. And also with the reticle colors, one thing that we can look at is all the other games where you can change the reticle color, because I think that plays a big part into pushing something to come to Fortnite, is how many other games in similar categories have that ability. Game freezes. On different platforms, just leaving a match can cause the game to freeze. I know PS4s are having that issue. Basically, if at the end of the game you and your team don't hit the return to lobby option, you can get a freeze. And some people, the game freezes. Like, so if they die and they just leave, well, if you leave to just rejoin your team in the lobby because you're the last one alive, your game can freeze. So that adds like easily a 2-3 minutes to your actual time. Then the other annoying thing is I have a friend on Xbox One, and anytime, say if they're already playing a game, if anybody joins their party, after they're done with that game, their game will freeze. And it will freeze in a bad, non-crash way. Basically, they'll just be stuck in an infinite loading screen, and they have to go back to the Xbox home menu. And then once they're there, they have to restart the Fortnite app. But upon restarting it, they're instantly reconnected with the party they were just in. So now we're talking about mic issues. Now I've got friends on Xbox that every time they go from party chat to game chat, they have to unplug their headset and plug it back in. And then if it's Bluetooth, they have to sync and unsync. It's a pain. So hopefully that can get fixed. And it just makes joining randoms really hard, because you want to talk to other people, but you can't because it messes up the game. And for a while on PC, for me, I couldn't leave a match unless I went back to party chat. So say if we started in a party and we were playing with randoms, if I ended the game and I was in game chat still, my audio would be gone. And so I'd have to go back to the lobby, go through all my input settings to get my audio back. The fact that you can lose your mic during a tournament is horrendous. So that was, you know, that's a big deal, because you don't want to have to do that every single time that, you know, you're playing. You don't want to mess with those things. And these problems have, just like everything else that I've pretty much mentioned, has been dated back since like 2017. There's a trend here. There's core features everybody from the community wants. You know, I'm relatively new player, but I think I've got like maybe 10k games in now. It might be a little bit less, but I feel like I've played, you know, it's over a year now, so I can have this opinion, and it's shared with, you know, different links of players that have played for different levels, different amounts of time, and it's things that we just want. Now, we'll go ahead and talk about the reconnect to a lobby, a match. I actually looked for the original video where I seen it explained, but I couldn't find it. But I know it's been talked about a lot lately, that if you're on Windows and your game crashes, before now, there really wasn't a good way to reconnect. So if you were in the middle of a tourney, you would just lose the tourney. If you disconnected, you know, if you're in trios or something, yeah, your team's playing around, down a person automatically. And I know I seen it happen. I know I was watching videos, and it's happened. So it was just like kind of put out recently. It's kind of been known probably for a little bit while, but more well known now, that if you're on Windows and you get disconnected, the game doesn't crash, but it can crash or disconnect. Sometimes it works for game crashes, but it works a lot for disconnects. You basically Control Alt Delete, hit switch user, and then, you know, log it back in as yourself, and it will reconnect. Now, what's interesting is that is not a built-in feature. Like, there's not a reconnect option that everybody uses, right? So on the other side of that, Fortnite Save the World, there's actually a reconnect option. If you get disconnected from a match, you can automatically load back in and it will reconnect. So why the competitive side of the game doesn't have that option built in is troubling. Now, I understand if you want to like disconnect and reconnect, you can technically get an advantage on enemies, but you know, the way around that is basically once you disconnect, your model is still there and you're still killable. So anybody that really wants to abuse that isn't going to be able to. We actually have a video on TikTok from Impact, and he basically does the exact same thing that I was describing, and it works. Now, obviously, we're not always recording at the right moments, so
oh my god, yes!
I had this situation happen, but mine wasn't during a tournament, but this one was, and it worked. Yeah, number 6, our PC controller issue. It's not what you think. It's not anything about aim assist, although that is something we could talk about if people want a video on it. But what I'm talking about is not being able to move items in your inventory, or just navigate like the main menu, going through your friends list, those types of things. I haven't seen too many people complain about it on PlayStation, but I've experienced it on Xbox. My friends have experienced it. I've seen other people talk about it. I can't find the posts because they're pretty old, but I know that there's like posts from 2017, people complaining about it, right? So I switched controllers. I switched to an Powered A Pro controller. So basically it has 4 paddles. It's signed off by Microsoft, so that should work, right? Well, whenever I contacted Epic originally about the problem, their reply was basically they can't test every third-party controller, so they just put the blame on the controller, which for me, that's very insulting to, you know, a community as a whole. Because imagine if you have a controller, or, you know, a keyboard even, and the game developer is like, well, you know, even though it should work with all inputs, we just can't guarantee that. Imagine. So that was the first issue, and I just kept emailing them, and eventually they were like, oh, okay, yeah, this actually issue was added to our Trello board, and here's the Trello board. So basically what it said was, even though it was fixed in the update, it hadn't been fixed for everybody. And basically, I had the solution for it. I just had to have taskbar up running. The glitch wasn't always there. The taskbar thing always worked. So it was really weird because the glitch wasn't always there. But when it would happen, I would have to pull up the taskbar and have it above it. So not running the game in full screen mode actually helped with that, but then you get the full screen issues, and yeah, it wasn't fun. Now, is it truly fixed? I don't know. I've switched from controller to keyboard and mouse just to avoid a lot of the issues we've talked about.